Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to my channel, dear brothers and sisters. The Quran is a book that is not bound by time or space, as it precedes modern science with its most accurate facts and discoveries. Gary Miller is a professor of mathematics who was raised in Canada. Religious schools were where he gained his knowledge. In addition to acquiring academic knowledge, he also gained faith during his time there. He then studied theology at Wheeling Jesuit University in the United States. He achieved many academic accomplishments there. His gift of intelligence made it easier for him to understand various fields of knowledge. Thanks to his intelligence and talent, he became an active supporter of spreading his faith on various occasions. He spread his beliefs to the public. With great enthusiasm, the man stood at the podium and explained the faith teachings that he believed to be true at that time. His lectures were also broadcast on television. Later, he earned a doctorate in mathematics from the University of Toronto. Miller's scientific thinking often clashed with the religious teachings he followed, which made him uncomfortable. As a result, he decided to convert to another religion. He also moved between places of worship for 9 years because he couldn't find answers from religious leaders regarding the concept of God. Miller's questions and explanations often puzzled religious leaders. Those who were supposed to provide answers to strengthen the faith of the community were left silent. The religious leaders could not give satisfactory answers to Miller. The dissatisfaction that arose from those unanswered questions was not left unaddressed. Miller sought other ways to find answers that could satisfy his curiosity and resolve his doubts. This time, he no longer bombarded religious leaders with questions about divinity. Instead, he began reading books about Islam written by Orientalists. While reading the book, Miller maintained his critical stance. He continued to question the conclusions of the Orientalists, who often undermined the teachings of Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. How could a prophet whose teachings have now spread worldwide be called insane? Is it possible for a messenger of the Creator who brought and spread the divine message to live abnormally? Such conclusions are completely illogical. He ignored them. Miller, who was in search of truth, began to reflect more deeply on the claim of Muhammad's prophethood. If Muhammad was a good and intelligent person, then there would be no reason for someone like him to lie about his prophetic claim. On the other hand, if he was considered insane, it would be difficult to understand how someone who was not aware of their actions could receive and convey divine revelation so clearly and perfectly. These thoughts prompted Miller to seek a deeper and more rational answer about Muhammad's prophethood and to assess the truth of the claim with a more critical and objective perspective. The answer to all of Miller's uncertainties is found in the Quran, Surah Az-Zariyat, verses 52 to 53. The verses state, "And no messenger came to those before them, but they said, 'He is a magician or a madman.' Did they instruct one another to say this? Rather, they are a people who exceed the limits." The subtle rebuke from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in those verses made him realize that the accusations from the Orientalists were not something new. They were simply repeating what earlier societies had done in rejecting the message of Islam. The Quran clearly clarifies that the Prophet Muhammad did not lie. His perspective was further opened when he read the story of the death of Prophet Ibrahim's son. Ibrahim passed away at the same time as a solar eclipse occurred. A companion of the Prophet once said that the sun disappeared because the son of the Prophet had passed away. The Prophet Muhammad, however, refuted this statement. The sun and the moon do not eclipse because of the death or loss of a person's life. This response is clear evidence that Prophet Muhammad was neither a liar nor a madman. The inspiration from the divine words brought a sense of fulfillment. Miller then became more enthusiastic about studying Islam. In 1977, he decided to read the Quran and sought to understand what was true and false within it. In 3 days, he read the divine verses. Upon finishing, he said to himself, "This is the belief I have spoken of and believed in for the last 15 years." Initially, he believed that the Quran was an autobiography discussing the life of Prophet Muhammad, his family, and his surroundings. He considered it similar to previous religious texts which contained the stories of past people. However, he was surprised to find something unexpected. It turned out that the Quran mentions the name of Prophet Muhammad only 5 times, while the name of Prophet Isa, Jesus, mentioned 25 times. As for Prophet Moses, his name is mentioned more than 100 times. He was even more astonished when he discovered Surah Maryam. On the other hand, he did not find a single surah named after Khadija, Aisha, or Fatima. He also did not come across any story related to the personal feelings of the Prophet Muhammad. Furthermore, there is no verse in the Quran that narrates the euphoria of the victory in the Battle of Badr or the suffering after the Battle of Uhud. Miller found that not a single word mentioned in the Quran reflects the sadness experienced by the Prophet Muhammad. This, he concluded, is because the Quran is a revelation from Allah, not from Muhammad. When he first encountered the Quran, he initially thought that its content was ancient knowledge created by a desert man thousands of years ago. However, after reading the verses within it, he realized that this prediction was incorrect. The Quran is a book that is not bound by space and time, as it precedes modern science with the most accurate facts that align with the latest scientific discoveries. Miller then gave his highest respect to the Quran. 200 years ago, the Dutch scientist Antony Leeuwenhoek discovered that 80% of the human body is made up of water. He was unaware that the Quran had mentioned this fact long before. Allah speaks of this in Surah Al-Anbiya verse 30 and Surah Fussilat verse 11. The same happened in 2011 when Saul Perlmutter, Adam Rees, and Brian Schmidt won the Nobel Prize in Physics for discovering the phenomenon of the accelerated expansion of the universe. Once again, this scientific fact was already mentioned in the Quran in Surah Az-Zariyat verse 47. The Quran also discusses the stages of the embryo. Surah Al-Hajj verse 5 caught the attention of Professor Keith Moore, a colleague of Miller at the University of Toronto. Moore is a professor of embryology and the author of the well-known book The Developing Human, which is a reference for medical students worldwide. The Quran made an impact on Professor Keith Moore's books. In subsequent editions, he included information he had learned from the Quran regarding embryology. However, the world took notice when Keith Moore released his book on clinical embryology. In it, he wrote about the primacy of the Quran in mentioning the facts of embryonic development. Miller was amazed by the consensus among Western authors that the Quran could not have been written by Prophet Muhammad. This is because it is a book of knowledge containing astonishing topics. This conclusion wisely points out that the Quran is indeed a divine revelation. The easiest claim is that some anonymous committees helped the Prophet in composing the Quran. However, some even say that Satan assisted him in creating it. This is a conclusion full of slander. Miller reflected deeply on this last claim and considered it a form of evasion and a failure to confront the truth. If the Quran were inspired by Satan, why would Satan include verses in it that condemn him? The Quran consistently warns against Satan, urging humans to reject his temptations and follow Allah's commands to avoid the torment of hell. Gary Miller embraced Islam in 1978 and chose the name Abdul Wahid Omar after his conversion. He resigned from his job in the mathematics department and chose to dedicate himself to preaching in Canada. The book he wrote, titled The Stunning Quran, attracted the attention of many people. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.